Yeah. So, I mean, if you're, obviously you're talking about Barack Obama, and you did have, goodness, now his name escapes me now. You had Jerome Corsi on your show today, who wrote a New York Times bestseller on Barack Obama, and apparently they're flying off the shelves. But what did he have to say about Barack Obama, and did you agree with him? And thank you very much for the call, Zane.
Oh, yeah, Zane, thanks again for the call.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought, first of all, Corsi did a great job on Larry King last night. They put him up with somebody from one of the phony organizations called Media Matters, who we used to interview years ago before they put us on their shite list. And the only argument he had against the Abomination book, which is at BraveNewBookstore.com, is that Jerry Corsi somehow knows anti-Semitic people. I mean, that was his weak argument. The fact is, Corsi's book is really good because it gets to the people that still believe in the establishment, and it's written just for those people. If you want to really delve into it, you got to read the Webster Tarpley books. Obama, the Postmodern Coup is a good one, who even Corsi himself recommended on the program when I had both those guys on together. But it's a good book. It fills a void. People talk about how he wrote that Swift Boat book. Well, I interviewed John O'Neill and Jerry Corsi years ago for that book, and I happen to believe what they wrote in that book, and I thought that Kerry did pad his military resume, and a lot of it was fake, just like George Herbert Walker Bush. He was a war hero and got decorated for jumping out of a plane and left all of his comrades to crash and burn and die. He got a medal for that. So, I mean, Corsi has, of course, a long history of doing good work. He exposed the Trans-Texas Corridor. He's exposed the North American Union, the real ID cards. So, I like the book. Now, I don't know if I'd recommend it as much for people who are as far along as maybe your audience, but it is really perfect and should be supported to your moms and your dads and your neighbors who are maybe a little more conservative and don't want to get as deep down the rabbit hole as maybe Webster Tarpley can. And that book, by the way, Jerry Corsi's book, number one on all the lists. So obviously there is some Obama fatigue out there, and people want to read about this stuff.
Yeah, I think there's good reason for it, too, Jack. I mean, I have 100 million thoughts on my head after what you just said. First off is that Obama is not convincing people anymore. I don't think he's carrying this torch like he did so well through the campaign. Now he's, and I hate to use the flip-flopping term, but now he's really turning his mind the opposite way when it comes to the war. Before we go on, Pi, if you have an excerpt from the book, go ahead, play that.
He pimps white women and black women. Okay. Obama is a long-legged man.
Well, Jerome Corsi, I guess, says it best there. I don't know what to say. No, it's obviously not. That's not an excerpt from the book. We're just kidding. No, but I think it's great. I really do. First of all, I like Jerome Corsi's writing. I think he's a great writer in general, and I do want to get a chance to read this book. But what's ironic to me, Jack, and what really gets me mad, and Richard, hang on, we'll get to your phone, but what really just ekes me is every time someone speaks out about almost anything now today, anti-Semitism is the automatic response. And what's crazy is that, obviously Barack Obama being black, you'd figure that they would say, oh, he's obviously racist. No, they go with this anti-Semite. I can't even.
Bullshit.
Yeah, thank you, Pius. It really gets me mad, Jack, because every time now you talk out against the government, some people, because they're so poisoned by the mainstream media, specifically Fox News and even CNN in some cases, now you're against Jews somehow, or you don't appreciate Israel, and it's just completely out of whack. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, let's move along, and that's part of the reason why Obama was the perfect choice for a candidate, because you can shield him behind accusations of racism. Look what they did to the Clintons. Not that, I'm any friend of theirs by any means. In fact, if you want, we could talk about this murder in Arkansas, which has a lot of very weird implications into it, where the Democratic Party leader was shot dead by a lone nut gunman who was later killed by police. He's dead men tell no tales. But that certainly is the plan, but they're kind of stuck in that old rhythm, aren't they, where if you talk about 9/11 truth, you talk about the North American Union, you talk about internal biometric passports and ID cards, they just call you a Jew hater, and instantly nobody will listen to you. But now they've got to recalibrate that to being a race baiter or a race hater, when these are the people, the Obamas and the others, that are the race baiters and the race haters and the racists.
Yeah, and Jack, on top of that, I mean, I don't want to use my personal experience for, fact or whatever, but I've even had people, and I have a lot of people who are big fans of Fox News, this whole thing. I've even had someone come to me when Ron Paul really started gaining some ground and really got into the race and started to become somewhat of a name. I turned my friend onto it, who's a very big, Republican, neocon, this whole thing, and he came back and he was bashing Ron Paul for being anti-Semitic. And I know, I mean, obviously to us as people who understand Ron Paul's philosophy, this whole thing, we know it's ridiculous, but it just shows and it proves to me how effective the mainstream media has been in really conditioning, really indoctrinating people to think somehow that if you don't like the government or if you don't believe the government's story on 9/11, et cetera, that somehow this all trickles down to anti-Semitism. But I do want to go to Richard in Texas. Richard, you're on the Animal Farm. What's up?
Hey, guys. Great show. Just wanted to make a couple of comments. I would like to refer listeners to something I saw on rumormillnews.com this afternoon, and it may be posted very widely, but it was a video of the Georgian police responding to protesters in Georgia, so effectively on their own citizens. And these guys were dressed in something worse than Darth Vader outfits, including gas masks and the whole bit. And they were beating the hell out of these guys, and they were using a new level of weapons, I think. But one was a disorienting sound cannon, and the other was some apparently very vicious steam grenades that they were throwing into the crowd, in addition to the usual rubber bullets and water cannons and that kind of thing. And, you know, this whole thing seems to be a testing ground for a lot of stuff. And, you know, who knows who was underneath those masks over there, whether they were all Georgian police or whether they were American mercenaries or Israeli people or God knows. But it was pretty vicious stuff and probably a harbinger for things we may see in Denver or you know, elsewhere over here. And
yeah, hang on. Unfortunately, Richard, I think your phone's cutting in and out there, a little popping. Sorry we had to cut you off. Jack, you want to respond? We got 50 seconds.
Yeah, well, that's right. They are going to be using it maybe at the conventions or maybe something worse. We're hearing a lot of chatter about something big to happen here in the United States. Halliburton trailers are folding down. Troops are coming back. They're not even talking about it in the media, coming back to the United States. FEMA, SWAT, everybody getting vaccinated and ready for something. We wrote a story about this called Disaster Chatter, which you can get at our website, deadlinelive.info.
Yeah, much more to come, folks, with Jack Blood. I also want to talk about more about not necessarily just Operation Sentinel, but now, you know, they're talking about protecting Ground Zero as if there's going to be another attack there. So I don't know what kind of curveballs are being thrown, but we'll talk about it more on the other side, folks. AnimalFarmShow.com. More to come with Jack Blood on the other side. Stay tuned.
Today, we become the enemy.
Oh, we hear so much about this Operation Sentinel, and like Jack Blood, who's currently our guest right now, has pointed out, just strange wording. If they always use these words from these, you know, these fictional movies. But what's even stranger to me, and I've tried to follow this up. Obviously, we're very close to the New York City area. I've tried to follow up, and I'm just trying to keep it posted as much as possible, because not only are they going to start taking pictures of everybody's license plates in and out, it's really going to be an ultimate police state city, if you will. But on top of that, there's this idea that Ground Zero is really one of the points that they're trying to protect. They even say here in the article at a Fox News, Ground Zero security plan calls for all vehicles entering New York City to be photographed. I mean, maybe I'm just completely naive and stupid here, but, I mean, of all places that is probably the least at risk for an attack, it'd be Ground Zero. I mean, there's nothing there. It's just the two holes from the towers and everything else that they're still rebuilding. But to my knowledge...
I want to complain.
That's right, me too. But there's nothing else there. So I don't know what they're trying to do here, but it really is the next step.
Well, I think what's important to say is that, you know, we beat that thing where they were trying to stop people from filming on the street in New York City. So all of this can be repealed. All of this can be set back. We can put stumbling blocks in front of them. We have to remember that they're greedy. They have all this hubris. They always think they can do these things to us. As soon as there's any kind of modicum of resistance, they recoil in horror and go reset their watches.
Yeah, well, we also had Jimmy Justice on last show on Tuesday, and one of the things I really wanted to bring up...
I am Jimmy Justice!
That's right. I brought it up to him, Jack, and I said, look, you know, we love what you're doing, and we think it's great. I was just worried that they were going to try to use some of these bogus laws where you can't photograph, you can't use video cameras, all this stuff. We heard about this, you know, less than a year ago. I was just worried that they were going to arrest him or try to attempt to arrest him on that type of thing. But hopefully, you know, in the end, hopefully we'll just get...
There's a new Building 7. I mean, it could collapse like, you know, Las Vegas Casino right into its footprint before the world, and, you know, a lot of people will get right in the line. That's the second Building 7 I haven't heard that was imploded.
It's unbelievable, Jack, and, you know, obviously we're going to be broadcasting on... You know, who knows where the show goes from now until then. But the bottom line is that we're really going to try to, you know, break open the things that we feel strongly about. And that's a whole other issue. But